Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to the Alliance Guys podcast. This is a presentation of alliance-wrestling.com, your number one source for news and information for the National Wrestling Alliance. I'm your host, J Cal. And with me, well, it's the Alliance Guys. It's DKM and the modern day hero, Kevin Douglas. Gentlemen, welcome back to the Alliance Guys podcast. How are you?
I'm doing great, and I'm so pumped that we got 3/4 of the team back.
Yeah.
Now we just got one more guy to coerce back in here so we can get the full squad. But I'm glad to have you back, DK.
And as always, I know everybody's glad that I am back.
That's right. It's just not the same without you there. So
that's right.
Let's talk some NWA. How about that, guys? Let's talk about some NWA Power. Now this is episode 17, which was titled Pride versus Thunder. Lightning and the Thunder. So this episode premiered on February 4th, and again, this is the 17th episode. And on this episode, we kick off with none other than the former World's Heavyweight Champion, a man who exemplified professionalism and class while being world champion. And I'm talking about the guy who stood at that mountaintop, Mr. Tim Storm. And Tim Storm is out there with Joe Galley, and they're talking NWA. They're talking about Tim wants to get back into that world title hunt, and he's going to do it with Latimer. By defeating Latimer, that should propel him back into contention for the world heavyweight title. And then, of course, Mama Storm comes out, and this is a complete and utter joke. And if the guy looks familiar, that's because he's the guy that's in all the high spot videos. And, well, this is, I don't know. I get where they're going with it, but I just think it's a fail. What do you guys think about this?
Well, I actually, before we say anything going further, how about the new intro song, the Pantera I'm Broken song? That got me all fired up. I started doing push-ups.
Well, and I consider myself, a recovering metalhead. When I was a younger man, I used to listen to a lot of heavy metal. So Pantera to me is pretty awesome, and I'll take it. But a part of me does miss the Dokken song. I did like Into the Fire.
Into the Fire.
It just kind of pumped me up, like when I was a kid listening to the Transformer movie, and you've got the touch, you've got the power. I kind of felt the same way. And but I there are so many people complaining about the theme song to this show, and I'm like, guys,
really?
Oh yeah, on the message boards, they can't stop talking about it, and I just think, you guys, it's a dang old theme song. It doesn't add anything more to the show. And there's this device now that's on almost all cell phones, and if you don't have it, you can download it from your app store on the phone. It's called Spotify. And if you like a song, you don't even have to pay for it. You could just punch in the artist's name and push play, and you can listen to that song all the time. You don't have to pay for it. It's a free service.
It's crazy.
That's where we are. That's where we are in 2020 now, But I like the theme song.
So Mama Storm and the whole segment, honestly, it's pro wrestling.
Yeah.
When you're but sometimes stuff happens. But no, when it is pro wrestling, and when you're gonna have silly stuff, period. But yeah. I will say, once I heard it was Latimer and Storm, I did not care 2 seconds about what else was said in the promo. I'm like, when is the match? When can I see it? Let's go. That's about as exciting. And as long as okay, I don't even care if it ends in some kind of cluster mess or whatever, but at least give me 10 minutes with those two guys, freaking slobber knocking, sweat flying, body smacking. Give me that match. 2-3 weeks. Give me a feud there. I don't care about titles. Just those guys 10 minutes in the ring 3 times over the next 3 months, and I'm happy. What about you, DK?
I love Tim Storm's interview.
Yeah.
And when Latimer came out, that was that was good. Of course, didn't Tim Storm, already lose a match where he could never have another title shot again? Or are we going to forget about that?
Well, in the middle of the interview, Latimer pointed out that, hey, you don't get to challenge for the world title again, but it's a moot point because he's going to beat him up anyways. But they never specifically said the world title. They kept saying the heavyweight title. And really, I mean, he could be talking about the third degree national championship or my man Ricky Starks in that TV title. They didn't really specify which belt was going to be on the line or an opportunity for him to challenge for. So I feel like they gave themselves an out while still kind of promoting that a big time matchup could be coming to for Tim Storm.
Right.
Well, I like the idea of the matchup.
Yeah.
I think Storm and Latimer would be a good match.
I think for sure.
So, I mean, I like the idea of the matchup. I like the thing. The Mama Storm bit, it was whatever.
It was a bit. It was a bit.
It was a bit. I mean, I didn't hate it. I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to it while it was playing.
Right.
I mean, I'm not going to brutalize them over it.
No, that's not. See, like that's something, right? Those kinds of things are not anything to split hairs over because, again, it's a promo segment, and when you give me what I want, it's hard to be mad about how it happened a lot of times. So all in all, I didn't have a big problem with it. Just give me that match and give it to me like more than one time. Don't give me just 5-6 minutes and then move along. Give me that one like 2 or 3 times.
Well, and it's also, and I don't want to hang on this for too much, but it's kind of what you pointed out last week, Kevin. We've kind of seen a delineation of the wild card where they were the tag team that kept challenging for the tag titles, but they lost 2 times in a row when they challenged for the tag titles. And now we're seeing more Royce Isaacs on his own with May Valentine, and we're seeing now Latimer in his, he had a great outing in that TV title qualifying match against Trevor Murdoch. It was a great match.
Right.
I haven't seen him manhandle. I haven't seen Trevor Murdoch be manhandled since he's joined the NWA, like the way Latimer did. Not even our world's champion handled him the way that Latimer did. So we could be seeing an honest to goodness delineation of the wild card, and maybe at Crockett Cup maybe they come back together as a team. But I'm all right with that. I'm totally okay with that. I would like to see Latimer pursue maybe the national title, maybe Isaacs pursue the TV title, or whichever way they work this out. But ultimately, I think that was a good promo to set up the match. And if it's okay with you guys, can we move on to the next thing?
Of course.
Because up next was probably my most favorite match of all of NWA Power that I've witnessed. We've been big fans of the quote-unquote junior heavyweight division of the NWA. I mean, they don't have a recognizable division, but what they do have is some really good talent. And I'm talking about specifically Caleb Konley, who's been having some stellar matches. He's still more or less enhancement, but he's been having really good matches on the show. And he got an opportunity to take on Matt Cross, M-Dog, and we got to see a really good match. I would say probably, like I said, my favorite match so far this since the show debuted back in October. And we had Ricky Starks on commentary, who I think, again, the guy can talk for sure.
Right.
We had him here on the podcast. He's great on the mic. He was fun here. He was fun on the show. The action in the ring was stellar. Matt Cross's shooting star press is a thing of beauty. What were your guys' thoughts on the match? KD?
DK? Oh, me?
DK?
Okay. DK, go ahead. Take it.
It was a good match. If you kind of like it was a little bit flippy for the people who like that type of thing.
I love that kind of thing. Sorry. Full disclosure, I love the flips, but go ahead.
Yeah. And I'm not denouncing it. It was still good in ring action. It wasn't over the top flips, and no obvious working together. They put on a good match. Did a little bit of back and forth. I really, 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 really wish NWA would kind of start doing a little bit more with Caleb Konley, and maybe start putting him in some matches with some enhancement talent and letting him kind of build a little. He's very good. He's obviously got talent.
Mm-hmm.
He's not a rookie.
No.
He's kind of new. He's kind of new to the TV side of it, but he's been doing good. He seems to have good ring awareness. He seems to have good camera awareness. I mean, there's nothing really to fault in this match.
Right.
I'll have to be honest. I don't remember which match it was. It may have been this one. That you do sometimes see a little bit of the problem with the setup of the studio, because in one of the matches there was a point where one guy was stretching another guy, and he was doing it so they were both facing the camera.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was this match. Caleb had him in a cross, a bow and arrow.
Right, and it was a cool match, and it was good that they were facing the camera so you could see it, except for they were facing the hard camera, which had their backs to the crowd.
Yeah.
And so the crowd's not really seeing what's going on and not really reacting to, the facial expressions or whatever.
Right.
And so that's not a weakness for either one of the guys. They were in the right place.
Right.
Just one of those, the setup might need to, something like that probably needs to be done more with a side camera or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I also think in that case scenario, I don't know what the studio really looks like. I haven't been in it, but I will say this: it's not hard to set up 30 chairs or 50 chairs on the hard camera side. Even if you have a little bit of the people in the view, or in where you can kind of have a little over the shoulder view of some of the fans in that, so that there's actually people there. But this is something that as a wrestler you learn early on. Hey, I've even if there's not a crowd behind the camera, I got to work I guess it was the second day. There's 88,000 people that had viewed the show, and you got to work those people too. You got to pay.
Right.
Those people need, because in reality, the TV and anybody that's in attendance at these shows, even you, J. Cal, don't take it the wrong way, but the show is not necessarily for the audience there at the arena. The audience is almost like your studio audience for Wheel of Fortune or something. They're there to provide a little bit of enhancement to the viewing experience. So I think it's one of those deals where it wouldn't be hard again to throw 30 to 50 chairs, right there where you can have some people right there on the hard camera side, or you just go with the awkward, work nobody but work the camera thing. But as a wrestler, as an in-ring guy or girl, you got to do it. You got to do it. It's something it has to happen, because no one watching the show on the internet wants to look at the backside of two guys working a crowd that on the other side of the camera. So again, that all that is what it is. But man, what a match! That match was everything I like in wrestling. Of course, well, I can't say everything, because I do like it when you get the Trevor Murdochs and the Tim Storms and the the Thomas Latimers just going out there and beating the dog living mess out of each other. I love that. I remember one of my favorite matches of all time was Nord the Barbarian versus Bruiser Brody, and they walked around and yelled at each other. Yeah, they yelled at each other for 10 minutes before they even started fighting. I was cheering, I was popping just for them yelling at each other. So again, it doesn't always have to be about work rate, but it is part of wrestling. And so I think having a good dynamic show, we've talked about this before, having some junior heavyweights out there. Again, though, Jay, we talked about this as well, that when you have junior heavyweights go out there and wrestle a match like that, it does expose some of the kinks and the holes in some of the middle to heavyweight wrestling work rate, because it makes those guys look a little bit slower, a little bit sloppier, and it really in a way, it's a good thing because it does make them step their game up. Because I would say one of the weaknesses of the NWA broadcast is the fact that the work rate, in-ring work rate, is not always to the level of what wrestling, what the expectations are for the current day. So there's my spiel. Great job by Caleb, who I know personally, a great guy. Had a match against him before, and then Matt Cross, who thanks Matt for coming in and putting over two of the NWA guys and just being such a gracious guy to come out there and work your butt off, knowing that was going to be your role.
And the one thing I do want to add about this is nobody looked bad in the loss. You know what I mean? And that's the thing I keep saying about Caleb Konley is he's having these matches where, no, he doesn't win, but he still looks really good. Like his first match on the show against Eli Drake, he lost, but he looked really good. And every match he's had so far, he's looked really good. So so that was that match. Again, I think that was probably my favorite of the year, favorite of NWA Power. And then the next thing that we get is a recap of the Nick Aldis, Marty Scurll sit down. And then we get Nick Aldis, which I can only assume he's in his home office, talking about not only Marty Scurll and how he beat him at last year's Crockett Cup, which I was there live. But he also started to talk a little bit about the event that's coming up with Ring of Honor, the Free Enterprise event in Maryland, where Nick Aldis will team with Roosh to take on PCO and Marty Scurll. Now, PCO is the Ring of Honor World Champion, and of course, Marty has aspirations to challenge for that World's Heavyweight Championship. And again, Nick kind of emphasized that Marty hasn't accepted the what's the word I'm looking for?
The title match. The title match.
Yeah, the stipulation for the title match.
Right, the stipulation. Yeah.
So we'll see if that still happens or how that's going to play out. But what did you guys think of this segment?
Well, personally, I'm really loving what Nick Aldis is doing right now, and so I really do like just like him on the microphone or like when he talks. I like when he challenges other wrestlers. I love it when he has back and forth with him, especially kind of in a live type segment scenario. So again, you have a guy doing something right now that, honest to God, who else is doing stuff like that? Especially in the heavyweight kind of main event type category. Most of these guys come out, they're like, "You don't like me, I don't like you, I want to beat you up, let's fight," and there's no creativity. It's just it's just kind of like, again, I'm not going to, really pinpoint anybody specifically, but it is very common just to come out and say something so vanilla and so generic. And Nick Aldis is anything but that. I feel like what probably started this with him and his promos was one day he got sick of cutting these vanilla promos and said, I'm gonna step out a little bit. I'm gonna try some new things. I'm gonna push myself out of my comfort zone. And it probably was awkward at first. It probably had people going, what's he doing? Like, what is this? But after a while, you start to get a hold of this. You start to develop a little bit of a system. And once you have it down, it becomes almost a second nature. And so with me, I really do get excited when I get, promos are a big thing to me. And I think, I've said on the show many times, like, look, promo ability and in-ring ability are the three standards as far as what makes a great professional wrestler in this day. And I think, again, Nick Aldis, I always look forward to his segments because I feel like he puts just as much time into his promos as he does to his look and as he does to his in-ring stuff. DK?
Look, I've been a huge fan of Nick Aldis. As far as I was happy when he won the title. I like him. He has the look. He looks like a world champion. He has the confidence of a world champion. He dresses in the suits like a world champion. And, there's kind of a chuckle to that, but, I'm not kidding. Lou Thez, when he was world champion, one of the reasons he was picked, they go, he looks like world champion. When he went out places, he was in a suit.
Mm-hmm.
You know, of course, Ric Flair was known for his suits and everything. I mean, Harley Race, not so much his suits, but he had the confidence, you know. Everything about Nick Aldis as world champion, I like. He's held the belt for a year now. He's held it for the majority of over 2 years. He could go another 2 as far as I'm concerned.
Wow.
I mean, you know how I feel about when they do the convolutedness, but, you know, that's a, you know, booking, writing choice. But just Nick Aldis giving a promo, his look, his in-ring ability, he's an excellent choice to carry the belt.
Well, all right, Nick Aldis, go ahead and send us a check if just for tooting your horn.
Hashtag we stand with Nick Aldis.
Right.
Apparently. So up next we get
Well,
our
do
old
you
pal
disagree?
Dave.
No, not at all.
We're all on board.
Everything you said. I mean, even the 2-year thing. You know, until somebody else really, and again, I think a guy like Eli Drake is probably the closest that the NWA has to being someone that can even compete for the title. But is Eli Drake going to carry the banner? Eli Drake's, again, probably an overnight champion that ends up dropping the belt again to Nick Aldis. So again, that's not a knock to Eli Drake at all. He's, again, another 5-tool guy. You know, he's got the promos, he's got the look, he's got the in-ring ability, but all in all, again, Nick Aldis has that little bit extra. And so, like I said, I can't disagree with anything. I think we all kind of agree that he's the best thing that the NWA has going right now. And the coolest thing about that is that they gave him the ball and he's run with it. And I love seeing that. I love seeing someone take something that maybe other wrestlers of that caliber may not see the same value in, but he took it and he actually made something of it. And in itself, he has elevated himself and the company just by being a great champion.
All right, that's enough good things about Nick Aldis. He hasn't come on this show and he hasn't put this podcast over, so that's all we're gonna say about him. Next up, we get our old pal David Marquez, and he's at the desk. I don't even know what to call it for sure. And this is a magical place where no other wrestling promotion has something like this. This desk is where, you know, this is where we get most of our confrontation outside of the ring. We get wrestlers talking to wrestlers and interacting with the crowd. And tonight we get the Pope, and he brings out the Dawsons. And now I don't think these are his superpowers, but he definitely is here. And he's talking about how he's still looking for the guys. And before he can get too far along, he hands David Marquez $1 who pockets the dollar. And then we get Eddie Kingston, and Kingston comes out and he starts saying how he wishes he could stab the Pope with a screwdriver, which that popped me. But I guess the NWA frowns on stabbing people with screwdrivers, apparently. So Kingston brings out his guys, the bruisers, the bouncers, excuse me, who are apparently a Ring of Honor tag team I'm not too familiar with. I haven't really seen a whole lot of them. And they come out there to confront the Dawsons, and Kingston's ready to go. He's ready to have a 3-man tag match. So we're looking at seeing like a 6-man tag match, excuse me. But the Pope pulls his guys off with just a limited confrontation with the bouncers. I thought this was a good segment to kind of set up this rivalry between Kingston and whoever the Pope is backing at the current time. But I still think it might have went a little too long. I felt like the Pope kind of rambled too much. Kingston is fire on promos. Mm-hmm. He might be one of the best guys in the NWA. DKM, what were your thoughts?
Well, probably the first thing, the actual segment where they were doing the exchange wasn't too long, but because they were doing the recap, and the recap was long. And so that was kind of like, yeah, you probably could have just covered the recap in a conversation and quick video, not having to show the whole thing from last week or whatever. Mm-hmm. I feel like if you're going to have a working agreement with ROH or something like that, this where you kind of do an exchange of maybe some of the mid-card talent to help get people over or freshen up a show. I mean, I think that's a good use of them. One of the problems we have now with 20 promotions but no territories is it's kind of hard to miss people. They don't have anywhere to go to refresh.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, this can do a little bit of it. They probably the bouncers or whatever their name are, they've probably done everything that they're going to do for now in ROH. It would probably be better for them to be in the NWA for a few months.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. I don't know. I'm just saying that would be a good thing.
Right.
And if you do that with some of the people, send somebody over occasionally to work in the area, let the ROH people miss them for a while. Can't miss you if you don't go away.
That's true.
And I just think it would be I think that's a good use of it. As far as the actual thing, I don't really know a lot about Pope because I wasn't watching WWE or whenever he was there. The brief time I know about him in TNA, he was already an announcer. And I think I only saw, maybe 3-4 episodes of that. And so I don't know a lot about him other than that he is good on the mic. So I'm learning, and that's nice.
Well, on my end, the next two segments, I don't have a whole lot to throw out there. Of course, I feel like Eddie Kingston is gold on the mic. It was a pretty cool little segment. I don't mind Pope on the mic.
No,
it's not my
Pope is good.
Yeah, and again, if they're setting something up with the big, with this, that's great. They did that. I think, and even in the next segment when it's Isaacs and Valentine, both the segments were pretty good little vignette type things or little setup type deals. I know that you need to do stuff like that. I liked both, and don't have a whole lot to say about them. They did not like them, but again, nothing changed my life. But it was all well done. And again, final thing to say on that is, good job to the NWA for making sense for almost the whole show up to this point.
Now, you brought up the May Valentine segment, and I'll go ahead and add my 2 cents. The whole thing is very cringy to me. I get it. She's, they're trying to create something with Royce Isaacs, trying to get some heat on him, I guess. And I don't know. She's not that good on the mic. She's a very lovely lady, but she's not the most beautiful woman in the world either. I don't really know what she's adding to the show, but apparently she's fun for somebody because they gave her a whole segment. And I understand that it is telling a story, but did we need to dedicate 5 minutes of an hour-long wrestling show to tell this story? We could just have recapped a Royce Isaac match, or we could have had Royce Isaac cut a promo, or I don't know, just about anything. I'm not a fan of this. It does show a different side of Royce Isaacs, which I guess is the point of doing it, but it just, I don't know. This is a miss for me. This is probably the only thing I'm going to complain about on this entire episode. It's just it didn't do anything for me. Right. What story are we trying to tell? That he is whipped, that he's you know what I mean? Like, it's not doing anything for me. So Kevin, you were kind of giving your thoughts. Is there anything else you want to add to that?
Nothing. The match coming up that we're talking about next, I'd rather devote a little more time to that because I really enjoyed it.
DK, are you all right with us just jumping to the match?
Just real quick on Valentine.
Sure.
I didn't. I mean, it's the one part of the show I didn't enjoy.
All right, so we're in agreement.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's basically it. It's the one part I didn't enjoy. Nothing else needs to be said.
So coming up next, we have. I'm going to go ahead and just say it. One of the show's favorites, taking on one of the show's favorites. We have the third degree Mongrovian karate black belt, third degree national champion, Aron the Shooter Stevens, who I think it was who I don't remember who pointed it out. I think it must have been Stu Bennett and called him the ASS, Aron the Shooter Stevens, which to me was just funny. And then you had Trevor Murdoch, who again. Has this guy had a single bad match since he's been in the NWA?
No.
I really enjoyed this match because, again, it was against two guys that I really enjoy watching for different reasons. Aron Stevens is funny to me. He's comedy, and he plays that, the heel, the chicken shit heel to one of the best that I've seen in the modern day NWA. He has that title, but he hangs on to that title by a thread every week, and when he actually defends it, I should say. And then Trevor Murdoch. I mean, is there anyone having? Well, I guess the Rock and Roll Express could take that, but is there anyone that's had a comeback in the world of wrestling like Trevor Murdoch has had? He looks great to me, and I think he's primed to take a title in the NWA. This was a good match. It was fun. They kicked out the question mark for so we wouldn't get any interference. And then Aron Stevens does what Aron Stevens does, and that's try to win by any means necessary, meaning he will take the timeout, or he'll take the time limit draw if he can get it. He'll take the count out victory if he can get it. Anything to just not be in the ring with real competition.
Right.
DKM, what were your thoughts on this match?
I really enjoyed it, and I hope to see more of it.
Yeah.
Our love for Trevor Murdoch is well known. He did a good job in this one, playing a big tough guy. Stevens, as you said, it was the perfect chicken shit hill. But yet, even at that, when he finally got some offense in, he was good with his offense.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
I mean, the whole match wasn't him running. He did his good heel cheating. He got some offense in. He looked good. For the part he was playing. It's he took advantage of the distractions, or when the ref's back was turned. He's a good wrestler.
Yep.
Now, maybe not a good wrestler. He's a good wrestler.
Yeah.
Yes.
As far as what pro wrestling is, he has a part, and he's very good at it. Mm-hmm. And Trevor Murdoch, he has a part, and he's very good at it. These are two, and this is going to sound like an insult, and it's not. These are two very good upper mid-card guys.
Yep.
And they have an upper mid-card championship to feud over. Mm-hmm. And I hope we get a legitimate feud out of this.
That'd be fun.
I have nothing bad to say about this.
I honestly agree. And, the one thing about Aron Stevens that, always has, not always, but it has impressed me in his duration as NWA champion, or just in the NWA as a whole, has been the fact that he acts like he can't wrestle. He acts like he doesn't want to wrestle. He acts like he's scared, and he acts like one of those. And how many times have we seen a character play this role, but not live up to what they can do outside of the ring, inside of the ring? Meaning that they got good promo skills, they look the part, but and they even play this role, but they get in the ring and there's just no substance there. But the way I was taught as a professional wrestler, that if you're going to play this role as a heel, whatever role you play as a heel, but if you're going to play this role, you still have to be vicious, you still have to be aggressive, you have to be somebody that other people look at and go, he might be, you know, a bad guy, but I wouldn't really want to fight this guy. And I feel like Aron Stevens has that. And this was a match where this was, you know, you had another match earlier in the card where it was two junior heavyweights going in and really having a good solid match. But then you have these guys go out there and they have a very solid heavyweight match. And you had a story going. Like you had some story, you had some heel stuff going. It wasn't just going out there move for move.
It's something I want to point out real quick, Kevin, and I'll let you get back to your point too.
Sure.
But as I'm, you know, as we're talking about this match, and DKM brought like, hey, when it had a chance for Aron Stevens to get some of his moves in, I mean, he brought it. And the things that I'm thinking about are when he did that baseball slide drop kick when Murdoch was outside the ring, that caught him off guard. When he had him up against the ropes facing the fans and he started just cross-facing the crap out of them, just those forearms going right into the face. Mm-hmm. And to your point, like he got in that ring and he was violent for a change. He's dropping knees on him. When Murdoch got into the ring, he's dropping elbows on him. Like he was all over him until he threw him outside the ring. That count out or checking on the time. So you're both right. This was probably the best maybe Aron Stevens has looked while wrestling in the NWA, but he's kind of like a complete package as far as I'm concerned. He's doing a great job. Not just a good job, a great job.
He's a big man.
Yeah,
I mean, I think some of that gets lost sometimes too, right? Because again, the character he's plays so well. But he's a big man. He's, you know, not kind of that Tully Blanchard chicken shit heel, who Tully Blanchard was excellent at it. And Stevens is, you know, he's a big guy. He can be brutal. And when he's brutal, it looks right that he's brutal.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yep. Yeah, and you bring up something very important, DK, because this is a big peeve for me. You know, I was never a huge guy in wrestling. Obviously. And one of the things that there are many times that frankly, I could, you know, I get in the ring, say in training with a guy that's 300 pounds or, you know, big old boy, like big, you know, not trying to say, okay, how do I say this? Muscled up guy. And, you know, I'd eat that. You almost caught that. But, yeah. You know, I'd eat their lunch. I mean, absolutely obliterate them in 45 seconds. But if that same 300-pound guy or that muscled up dude and I were to have a match, I couldn't do that to them in the match because it would ruin the perception that people have of what's going on.
Right.
And so again, that's something that maybe a lot of people outside of wrestling, maybe fans or even, you know, really dedicated fans may not realize is that just because you can in wrestling doesn't mean you should. Look of believability is a big deal to me. And we've talked about this on the show that, you know, suspended disbelief. We know what we're watching, but don't insult my intelligence. And Aron Stevens is, again, one of those guys that it looks, for me, for my money, like he's very believable when he's in there having offense as a wrestler, which makes the role even better because you just go, he doesn't have to do all this. He could just go out there and fight and be good. Heck, he's a third-degree Mongrovian black belt.
And there aren't a whole lot of those.
So Kevin, this all begs the question: What would it take to get you to come out of retirement to challenge that third-degree Mongrovian national championship?
Oh, probably more money than the NWA would ever want to pay me.
All right. Well, I'm going to just throw it out there. If you know, I do feel like the powers that be at the NWA are watching this show because it seems like a lot of our criticism gets addressed each and every week.
Right.
If the NWA is listening, Alliance Wrestling will pay for part of this match if we can get it booked at the Crockett Cup. J. Cal will pull out that checkbook and we'll see if we can make this happen.
Only if DK will come out as my manager and carry the belt.
Woo!
That can be arranged.
Oh man!
Right.
Before
y'all
y'all get me into trouble, let's move on.
So again, we like I said, we had some concerns last week that we had a lot of talking last week and only 2 wrestling matches, to DKM's point, a little over 8 minutes of wrestling total on an hour-long wrestling program. But this week, we've already had 2 really good wrestling matches, and we still have a main event coming up with I almost said Tasha Simone. Goodness gracious, where's my head? Allison Kay.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Allison Kay coming to challenge Miss Thunder Rosa. But before we get to that, we've got a new segment. It's is it the Mooney 2 minutes? I'm not exactly sure what they're calling it, but Sean Mooney, of WWE fame, we talked about him last week. He kind of gives a rundown of what's been happening in the NWA from last week's episode. It's kind of.
You're going to skip over Zicky?
Oh, okay. We could talk about Zicky. So we get Zicky Dice, and he says he'll do anything to help the NWA Tribe subscriptions, and I don't know what that means, guys. I don't.
I don't want to know.
Yeah.
Oh, you guys are overdoing it. He's just saying that we can send something outlandish for him to do, and I have a few ideas. If the NWA subscriptions go up by 100,000 from whatever was on the thing, I think they're like 184. So if they can get to like 284 by a certain date, then we can send suggestions for him to do something outlandish.
Wow.
And, I know Ziggy Dice isn't my favorite person on the show, and I've been pretty harsh on him, but he is starting to grow on me like a fungus.
Oh, yeah. You're not the first person to say that either. And I think even Kevin would admit to that. Last week we kind of touched on that.
Right.
Where this is a guy who, on first observation, he's annoying. All right, my first introduction to Zicky Dice was he was actually a challenger to Tim Storm, not for the title, but when Tim Storm was champion, he had a non-title match in Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, and that's when I first saw Zicky Dice, and he was even heavier then, but he wrestled fairly well. He's gotten better shape. Kevin will say he still has a long road to go, but he looks a lot better now than he did 2 years ago when I saw him for the first time. The guy travels everywhere, and his promos, he stays in that character. If you see some of the content he's putting up on Twitter, he's a silly, silly guy. And I don't know, man, he's growing on me too. And I think he's like a lot of the NWA fans are really big on Zicky Dice. And it'll be interesting to see what we get out of him.
I think what I'm getting from him, and you guys are free to agree or disagree, what I'm getting from him is this outlandish character and charisma and stuff like that. That's, getting me to a certain point. But I think there's a sincerity of his wanting to be a good professional wrestler.
Yeah.
And I think that is what's starting to get me. Like this segment here, normally this would be the type of thing where I go, ugh, and I hate it, and why they do it, and it was a waste of time. But, just here, he's here going, hey, help the NWA get, almost double in subscriptions, and, and I'll do this and stuff. And it's just like, it was all in his character and everything, but there was a sincerity there. And it's like, this is somebody who wants it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Maybe he's got a way to go. Maybe he needs to get in better shape or whatever. And like I said, he's in way better shape than he was 2 years ago. But that says it. He wants this. And, you kind of got to credit somebody who's that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
So is it okay if we jump to the Mooney 2 minutes?
Yep.
So, again, this is something that I feel like didn't need to be a part of the show. This is something that I would put on, if it were me, if I was running the NWA, this is something I'd put on TikTok or on Instagram or on Facebook. If you're watching this show, you know what's happening.
Right.
You don't need a reminder. And throughout the shows, there's been so many clips showing us what's been happening. We get clip after clip of Allison Kay versus Thunder Rosa from the pay-per-view, or Zicky Dice versus, not Zicky Dice, but Ricky Starks, and how he won the national title. We get all the recaps. I think this is kind of pointless. If you're watching the show week to week, you don't need this. And if you're new to the show, let the wrestling speak for itself that's happening now. I think this would be a great reminder to have on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, on all your socials for 2 minutes to catch you up before NWA Power. But I don't feel like this was necessary. Again, we have an hour of wrestling, and these recaps, these, what's her name? May Valentine,
right?
Her vlog, this particular package. Now, this was at least entertaining, but I found out that Tempur-Pedic was responding to Ricky Starks because everybody's sleeping on him. I thought that was entertaining, but I just feel like this is taking away from something that I'd rather see, which is more live wrestling, more in-ring action. And this could have been on any time of the show. I just kind of felt like it was a time waster.
I don't disagree at all. And actually, I think what you said, it would be so much more effective as a midweek kind of thing on Facebook or even on here on YouTube. I mean, just something that kind of gives you an update about what's going on with the NWA. What's the latest? What if you missed last week, or it would also be good to play maybe earlier in the day for, like, let's say you missed the show last week and you don't have time to go back and rewatch it, and you want to catch up this week and then maybe go later some other time. Again, I'm just giving all these hypotheticals, but again, like you said, I think it would be a good midweek kind of thing or kind of update thing, but throwing it out there just like we just saw, I think was there's no need for that.
Yeah.
DK, do you agree?
It would extend it to 5-6 minutes, put it on Monday.
Right.
There you go.
Yep.
There you go.
So, I mean, that's
because it was a good segment.
It
was a good segment. Like, it wasn't bad. It was totally watchable. Like, totally watchable.
Yeah, absolutely.
But not bad. But just and it using Sean Mooney like for his strength. So again, it's not no one's like knocking the segment, but like what you said, Jay, why are we using our good wrestling time for that?
It just felt a little redundant. That's all.
Yeah, because they do a lot of clips in the show as a whole.
Right.
And so now they have a segment for clips. So yeah, I mean, a good segment, put it on, extend it to 5-6 minutes, put it on Monday. Let's talk about the tag team champions.
Right. And the tag team champions, who I don't think they have an official name yet, but let's just call them beer buddies. We get James Storm and Eli Drake in a non-title match against Mims, who is everyone's favorite enhancement talent, and Jocephus. And this is probably the best Jocephus does look on the NWA television programming, because he, it wasn't over the top goofy. He was wrestling, and he didn't look horrible in the match. I mean, even James Storm gave him a little bit of respect by shaking his hand at the beginning of the match. I felt this was very adequate. It wasn't a great wrestling match. It did showcase the talents of Eli Drake and the talents of James Storm, while also kind of making Jocephus look like a little bit more of a credible challenger here in the NWA, just not some, joke. He actually had a little bit of offense, and I mean, holding his own in the ring with James Storm, holding his own in the ring with Eli Drake. I felt that's going to be good for him if they ever decide to do something with the character Jocephus beyond enhancement work.
Right.
But ultimately, this was a non-title match, which I think is fine, because as DKM and I talked about offline, if you start doing title matches every week, then the need for a pay-per-view kind of diminishes. So let's save these tag titles for a pay-per-view or whatever. But it was a fine enhancement match. Kevin, what were your thoughts?
It was good to see the tag champs in a match. Maybe I'm just a terrible person, but when I know what the outcome's going to be,
yeah,
it's when it's so obvious, I just tend to check out. That's just me.
Okay.
And so again, no one's saying like that. I don't know. I knew exactly what was going to go down, and knowing that, I just kind of, didn't care.
Sure.
I know that sounds terrible, but it just, got a little bit of a rub for, for the Jocephus and the other guy, but it just, it wasn't a bad match. But again, I probably am on the minority here where, I prefer competitive matches in general, just because that's the climate that we are in the wrestling world today. That's where we are. So,
well, let me ask you this: would you rather see a match like this or another May Valentine promo?
Of course, I'll take this over the May Valentine promo any day. But like I said, I just wasn't too invested in it. I just kind of okay, moving right along.
DCam, your thoughts on the match?
Well, once again, I'm going to explain why Kevin is wrong.
Sure.
Because that's what I'm best at.
Sure.
Seriously, let me start by saying it was good at what it was supposed to be. It was an enhancement match. It showed Storm and Drake working as a tag team, not as two single wrestlers wrestling in a tag team.
Yeah.
It was a tag team. They tagged correctly. Jim Cornette would have been proud. They worked together without blatantly, just double teaming for 3 straight minutes. Jocephus was used very well. I have no problem with him being used like this. I have no problem with Jocephus even, picking up wins here and there. He's solid middle, mid-card talent.
Yeah.
Where I'm going to go with what Kevin said, okay, I knew what was going to happen in the opening match with Konley and Matt, what's his name? Cross, whatever. And, I knew what it was going to be. I knew what type of match it was going to be, and I knew who was going to win. I kind of knew what was going to happen in the national title match. I figured it was probably going to end draw because of time limit. I was a little bit surprised that they gave Stevens as much offense as he got.
Right.
But, and I was happy for it. But I basically knew what was going to happen. And I basically know what's going to happen in the women's title match. And so, well, yeah, you look at it and go, well, it wasn't competitive. And no, it wasn't meant to be competitive. But it was meant to highlight the tag team champions, and it did what it was supposed to do.
Am I supposed to rebut?
No, you can or you cannot. It's all up to you.
I nothing that you say is wrong in terms of where you may say, well, my opinion is wrong, maybe just because you disagree, but it doesn't technically make you right.
No, I'm right.
Anyways.
For those who don't know, Kevin and I are very good friends, and this is just our banter.
Absolutely. Yes, we love each other like family. But no, I'll say this. And again, this is I think what we're looking at here is preference. And the funny part is that we could go back and forth on it all day, but the funny part is both of what we want to see got met in the show.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
That part I thought was pretty interesting, was that we did get to see, a match where you have that enhancement talent kind of thing, but we also got to see a really good competitive match. And again, I think when I mean by know what's going to happen, again, I go back to that suspended disbelief. Give me something that makes me at least believe that it's not going to be a cakewalk necessarily for Drake and James Storm. That I would say that would be the biggest issue in terms of not necessarily knowing, because again, I didn't really fully expect. I mean, I could have guessed the outcomes to all the matches and been right, but again, in the match with Caleb Konley and Matt Cross, you at least had a little bit more competitiveness. You had a little bit of something in there where you felt like there was a chance. I didn't feel, and even the Aaron Stevens match with Trevor Murdoch, again, it was the same kind of thing. And again, in the main event, the women's match, you're going to have some of the same stuff. In this match, again, I'm just not a big fan of it. Now, and this is another reason why, is I didn't feel like the guys they wrestled, I mean, I guess Jocephus is all right, but I just didn't think they were that good. So even if you're going to bring in enhancement talent, at least make them good. Caleb Konley's been an enhancement talent, quote unquote, and he's a heck of a wrestler. So at least give us some talent if we're going to have these kind of matches. That's kind of, I guess, more what I'm looking at, because the in-ring work from this match was left a little something to be desired on the competitors or the opponent's behalf.
Yeah. So as a nice segue transition, you talked about the main event, and the main event was what's next. And again, we're seeing the women's champion having a super competitive match against the former women's champion, and on a night where, the worst match wasn't even that bad, the tag team match. We've had so much excellent wrestling. We get these two, no one would ever call them divas. They're legitimate female wrestlers. The women's division of the NWA, this is the top of the pinnacle for the women's division. And Thunder Rosa, again, so crisp, so technically sound. Allison Kay, is still really competitive, also vicious in this match. There's a lot of, really, what's the word I'm looking for? Snug kicks. Kevin, is that the right phrase? Snug?
Great word. Yes.
They
were in there.
This match looked very believable. When we talk about suspending believability, I legitimately felt like these two women were beating the crap out of each other. And which kind of surprised me is we also had Marty Bell try to get involved with the match. Melina was also ringside. I should point that out. She was at the broadcasting booth, but not taking part of the broadcast. She didn't have a headset on. She was just mostly watching the match. We get Marty Bell running out trying to, I think she was going to interfere, but Thunder Rosa wanted nothing to do with it. Allison Kay didn't want her to interfere. And that was really the only, I think, drawback to this match, because, in the past, Thunder Rosa has been completely fine with that. In this particular match, not so much. But I think that also we're starting to see that break with Thunder Rosa and Melina's group. I don't think that they're going to be a group much longer. DK, what were your thoughts on this match, and what do you think the future lies with the women's division?
Look, I love the match. I thought on the pay-per-view, the women's match stole the show. It was certainly the best match of the night. I thought this was a good rematch.
Yeah.
Especially considering that it was recorded the day after.
Right.
So breaking a little bit of kayfabe here, they had already put on a pretty big match just the night before, and now come in the next, afternoon and do it again. Really really shows the talent these two have. And, I haven't known a lot about Allison Kay. I knew she was in TNA. I knew she held the women's title there. Nothing personal, but I don't know that means a whole lot. So I saw her win the title against Tessa, when it was vacant. And so...
Are you talking about the NWA title?
Yeah, the NWA title.
Santana Garrett.
Yes. Oh, yeah, Santana. I'm sorry. My mind's... It's bedtime.
It's all right.
Anyway, but, it was an okay match. I hadn't really seen any of her other matches than the ones she's kind of had here on TV. But her matches with Rosa have just been excellent. And I have a whole lot of newfound respect for Allison Kay.
Pinkies up.
Pinkies up. I don't know what that means, but okay.
That's
I know something she said. Yeah, I was going to say, I know something she says.
Yeah.
And, there was a segment in this match where the two of them kind of just punched and slapped each other until they were like worn out and things like that. And that may not be some people's cup of tea, but I thought it was excellent because I thought it showed that these two were really going all out. And, then they fire back up and, hit each other, some more. And it's
sorry.
The match and the competitors, I have no complaints about. I didn't understand why Marty Bell came out. I mean, I didn't remember it being like a dire or drastic situation. So,
no.
That didn't make sense to me. Obviously, like you said, the group itself probably isn't long, or at least the current incarnation of the group probably isn't long. But really, when you kind of look around the NWA, even at the groups, when was the last time we saw strictly business together?
Yeah.
I mean, they're all kind of doing their own thing. So I actually prefer that, by the way. So the match was great. I don't think there's anything else to say.
Real quick.
Well, and I can. Oh, go ahead.
Real quick, Kev, before you get to your point, I think the expression, and Kevin, you could correct me if I'm wrong, because I think you probably know better than I do, but that part where they're all fighting together and they're just punching and kicking and slapping until they're all tired out, and then they're able to keep going. I believe that is reminiscent of 90s All Japan Pro Wrestling. I think that was considered the King's Road style of wrestling. And I just want to point that out, that I felt like that was a great homage to those old Puroresu matches where you had guys that would just beat the living crap out of each other and then come back for more. And that's what I felt like they were doing in this match. Kevin, go ahead. What were your thoughts on it?
Well, I would say that coming up in wrestling and seeing firsthand like what a top-notch, top-of-the-line world champion female wrestler, how a woman prepares, how they practice, how they eat, how they work out, the whole thing, getting to see this kind of thing firsthand. There's a lot going on behind the scenes with Thunder Rosa. In terms of her preparation and just what she's goes through on a weekly basis to come out there and look as good as she does in the ring.
Right. And
again, my hats go off to her because I know that this stuff doesn't just happen.
Right.
So I love when they do certain things like this, when the company says, look, our prior champion was great, but we're hitching our wagon to you, kind of like they have with Nick Aldis, and we're going to run with you. And having her beat Allison Kay twice, I think she won the match, but having her come out there and just solidify that she is the champion twice, I think is a great move for the National Wrestling Alliance. And so many times in wrestling, you'll see the company not realize what they've got when they've got it. And I think it's great to see the National Wrestling Alliance really realize that they do have something special in Thunder Rosa, and they're actually acting according to that. So hats off to them for that. Hats off to the women for just going in.
Right.
Just going after it, because time limits, to the wayside. I want to, if there ever was a male wrestler watching, or listening to our show, I would say, guys, look at these two women. They had a killer match, the same as you guys did the day before.
Right.
And they had no problem going out there, laying it all on the line, and just beating the crap out of each other. And so hats off to them. That's kind of the best I can, that's the best way I can put it. It's just hats off to them, and good stuff, fun to watch. It's always great to see two top-notch athletes go at it. I know you guys have a lot of praise for Allison Kay. I think she is a good wrestler. I guess to use a old school term. Did I get dropped and then brought back on?
No, we lost DK, and I'm trying to bring him up right now.
Oh, okay. But all that being said, she's a good wrestler, but she's certainly a notch below Thunder Rosa. No offense to her. She's amazing, but I think even she would admit that Thunder Rosa is the hot hand right now for the NWA women's division.
I think that is absolutely truth. So that's going to do it, guys. We're going to wrap up the show. Again, we greatly appreciate you guys watching the show week in and week out, making us part of your NWA viewing content. I know there's a lot of options out there for you to check out, and it's always just means so much to me, Kevin, and DKM that you guys are watching this show. Again, I do a live stream before the NWA POWERRR. You can check that out at 5:05 Eastern, 2:05 Pacific on this YouTube channel you're watching right now. I know DKM had to take off, so you can follow him on Twitter at DKMFWTX, and that's where he does all of his wrestling takes. Kevin, I know that you have a lot of places where people can go to experience Kevin 24/7. We always put the video, the YouTube link here on after the video. Where can they find you on social media?
Well, I go by my shoot name, brother, on social media. And so it's Kevin Lee Frazier, Frazier, all one word. Been having a blast on Twitter over the last few months between wrestling and baseball and football and just all the stuff that is to be had. Of course, a lot of the stuff that I tweet or get involved with has to do with wrestling or has to do with my role in Christian ministry. And so again, I'm always out there, always available for conversations about any subjects or topics. And on Instagram, it's the same username or same screen name, Kevin Lee Frazier, Frazier. And always grateful for anybody that interacts with us. That's why I get on there, is to interact with you guys.
And if you care to follow the life and times of JCal, I'm on Twitter at first to third, an homage to Mike Scioscia's Angels baseball, making those first to third hit and runs, right, Kev? And then you could also
That's right.
You could also follow me, follow this website, these videos at the Alliance blog. I talk NWA on both channels, but if you want to follow, like, subscribe, all that good stuff, you can follow us at the Alliance blog really on all social media. That's Tumblr, TikTok, Twitch, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and of course you're watching us here on YouTube. So make sure you hit like, subscribe, and share the show with anyone else who you know is watching NWA Power. Kevin, DKM, thank you guys so much for being on, and we'll see you at the matches. Good night now.
We here?
Yeah, we're here. I'm going to try one more time just to put DKM on. I've been trying to add him on through the whole end of the show, but we're just to check it out to see why he can't get back on.
Okay.
Is anything else you want to talk about?
No, I'm good, man. I'm about to hop off of here. Tell DK thanks for a good time, and we'll be back next week at our Wednesday time if everything works out.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Kev.
Man, have a good one, Jay. Thank you, sir.
You too, brother. Be good.